Thank y'all. Thank y'all so much. Thank you so much. I love that. I love that. Republicans for Presley. Let me say first and foremost, it's great to be at the Neshoba County Fair. You know, my first time here was in 1991. I was a 13-year-old boy, and I'd saved up a little money working at Mr. Jimmy Rogers' auto parts store in Nettleton, and put an ad in a little local publication, said, Wayne Dowdy for governor, signed Brandon Presley, and I was 13 years old. Mr. Dowdy called me and asked me to come down for his speech that day, and I met friends from all over and made lifelong connections. Mr. Tom Childs is here today, who's been like a daddy to me. And I'll never forget that. I never thought I'd be standing here. As fate would have it, and the world will twist, Wayne Dowdy that year was running against Ray Mabus. And now I'm marrying a Mabus. I'm so proud for Caitlin to be here today. Her grandparents started the famous Williams Brothers General Store right here in Philadelphia, and she's going to make a great First Lady. You know, this is an historic day for lots of reasons. It's a special day. Because in a minute after I get through talking, Governor Reeves is going to come up and he's going to give his last speech as governor of Mississippi at the Neshoba County Fair. Because we're going to send him to the unemployment line in November. You know, the governor's had some distinction this week. We found out a few days ago that he's tied with the governor of Oregon to be the most unpopular governor in America. But he also, hey, he ain't done winning yet. He won the prize for being the most unpopular governor in the South. Now look, coming from where I came from in that little tiny town of Nettleton, I shouldn't be standing here as a candidate for governor. Folks who grew up the way I grew up don't get a chance to run for governor. My daddy was murdered the first day I was in the 3rd grade. And my mother was a widow and a single parent that struggled every single day just to pay the bills. My sister Greta's here today. Greta and Greg and I grew up in a house in which sometimes there was no electricity. Not because my mama didn't know that the bill was due. It's because she didn't have the money to pay it. Sometimes we didn't have running water. I understand where working people are in Mississippi. Everybody cannot be born rich and lucky. And that's why you need a governor that'll stand up for the people of Mississippi, that'll care. There was no silver spoon in sight in our house. But my mama made things as best as mamas do. When the power was cut off, she'd say, you know what? We're going to act like we're camping out this week. So I understand where working people are, and Tate Reeves doesn't have a clue. He doesn't have a clue as to what people in Mississippi are struggling with. And when he comes up here in a few minutes, he's going to do his best to whistle past the problems in Mississippi, including our health care crisis. And much like Nero of old, he's fiddling while our hospitals are burning to the ground. And he doesn't care. He doesn't care. This man's been caught in the largest public corruption scandal in Mississippi history. And he claims to be a numbers man. We've heard for years he's a numbers man. Well, let me tell you some numbers that this numbers man won't tell you. After he fired the prosecutor in the case that now we call the welfare scandal, you know, that's the one where Brett Favre got $5 million for a volleyball court. Y'all remember that. Let me give you some numbers that this numbers man is not going to talk about. 13 depositions that were delayed because Tate Reeves fired the investigator in the case. Let's talk about $1,300,000 that the governor himself inspired as a payment to his personal trainer. And this guy's going to jail for 34 years, and he said the lieutenant governor then, Tate Reeves, inspired the money to go to him. Let's talk about $25,000 in campaign contributions just a few months ago from somebody named Ken Nakud, I don't know how you say his name, but at the end of the day ended up just a little bit later being appointed to the Gaming Commission. Let's talk about 2,253 children that died in a 6-year period in Mississippi because of lack of health care. Let's talk about 157 hospital workers at St. Dominic's Hospital laid off. So when he wants to talk about numbers, make sure he gives you the full picture of the numbers. Now, the fact of the matter is this. The fact of the matter is this. You know it, and I know it in our gut. Tate Reeves doesn't care anything about us. He doesn't care anything about working people. If you can't write a campaign check, or you're not part of his little club of buddies and insiders, you're shut out of state government. You're shut out because he cares about one thing. Himself. That's all he cares about. It's why in this campaign, and you watch up here today, he will not open his mouth one time to propose ethics reform in Mississippi to stop the welfare scandal from ever happening again, but also to clean up state government. You and I know we've got a system in Jackson that's bought and sold to the highest bidder for the most cash. We have a system in which the legislature can raise money, and the governor and lieutenant governor can raise money during the legislative session when they ought to have their mind on our business instead of the lobbyist business. Who's going to carry them fishing? Who's going to carry them golfing? We need to return state government to the people of the state of Mississippi. And I am so proud. I'm so proud that in this campaign we're building a coalition of Republicans and Democrats and independents, people who might not ever agree on many issues, that understand that it is time to end the reign of Tate Reeves and end his corrupt political career once and for all. Now I'm running this race on values that I learned in my small hometown where I was mayor, where I cut taxes twice. A town that's near and dear to my heart. A town in which my mama raised me, and she was a preschool teacher. She worked at a garment factory. She prayed for us every night, all day, every day sometimes. I understand what it is to be a survivor. I understand what it means just to scrape by. I understand where working people are. And for all of those in Mississippi that are left out, that Tate Reeves doesn't know exists. Families like mine don't exist in Tate Reeves' mind. When my name goes on the ballot in November, your name goes on the ballot in November. And the values that I learned from my uncle, the late sheriff of Lee County, Harold Ray Presley, who was murdered in the line of duty. This is a badge that belonged to him. And at home in Nettleton, I've got the gun that was on his hip the night he was killed and the flag that was draped across his coffin. So Tate Reeves better not open his mouth to me one time in this campaign about values of standing up for law enforcement. He's never stood where I've stood. He's never been where I've been. Now, when you go into the voting booth in November, I want you to think about one thing. Which candidate has got the guts and the backbone to stand up for us? Which candidate has spent an entire career? Hey, which candidate in this race, when your right to vote was taken away, would stand up for your right to vote? Not Tate Reeves. Now, we understand clearly in this campaign what it comes down to. Whether you got a governor that's got some guts or somebody that'll play along with the system. Somebody who's been a product of the system. And we've proposed a bold ethics plan to clean up state government, to put corrupt politicians where they belong, in jail. And I want to send this message. I want to send this message today to all of Tate Lurie's little insiders and lobbyists and buddies and influence buyers, I want to tell you this. Come November the 7th, in the words of that old Willie Nelson song, you can shut out the lights. The party is over. Thank you very much.